Lawyers, what's the most ruthless thing that happened at a will reading? I was 24 when my grandmother died, leaving behind a fortune built from 3 decades of real estate investments. The family gathered in Attorney Caldwell's mahogany-paneled office, dressed in black, already mentally spending their inheritance. My uncle kept checking his phone, probably browsing boats. My aunt had been renovating her kitchen for months, waiting for this money to finish it. I sat in the back corner, the only grandchild who'd bothered visiting Grandma weekly for the last 5 years. The rest of the family showed up twice a year, Christmas and Thanksgiving, armed with forced smiles and expensive wine they knew she liked. Attorney Caldwell cleared his throat and began reading. The air felt thick with anticipation, standard legal jargon about sound mind and testamentary capacity. Then came the bequests. To my daughter Patricia, I leave my collection of china plates, as she always admired them during her brief visits. My mom's face fell, 40 years as a daughter, reduced to dishes. To my son Gregory, I leave my gardening tools, since he frequently mentioned how beautiful my yard looked. My uncle's jaw clenched. He'd been expecting the beach house. To my daughter-in-law Vivian, I leave my recipe books, which she often complimented but never actually used. My aunt's expression went cold. The lawyer continued through similar items for other relatives. My cousin got a set of bookends. Another cousin received a lamp. Distant relatives got increasingly petty items. A stapler, a doormat, a half-empty bottle of perfume. Then Caldwell paused, adjusted his reading glasses, and his tone shifted. The remainder of my estate, including all properties, investments, bank accounts, and personal assets, totaling approximately $7 million, I leave entirely to my granddaughter, with one condition. Every head in the room turned toward me. I couldn't breathe. She must read aloud the accompanying letters I've written to each family member before she can accept the inheritance. These letters contain information I gathered over the past 5 years about how each of you truly feels about me and each other. Attorney Caldwell pulled out a thick manila envelope. Inside were sealed letters, each labeled with a family member's name. My mom stood up. This is ridiculous. She was senile. Mrs. Patterson, Caldwell said calmly, your mother underwent a full psychiatric evaluation 2 months before her death. She was thoroughly competent. The will is ironclad. My uncle's face had gone purple. What kind of sick game is this? The letters must be read within the next 10 minutes, Caldwell continued, or the entire estate goes to charity. The choice is yours. He handed me the envelope. My hands shook as I pulled out the first letter, addressed to my uncle. Through the translucent paper, I could see Grandma's handwriting. Years of Sunday dinners where he'd complained about her to his wife, thinking she couldn't hear from the kitchen. Conversations about moving her to a nursing home to free up her house for sale. Text messages I'd glimpsed on his phone about her being a burden. Well? My uncle demanded. Read it or refuse the money. Either way, let's get this over with. I looked around the room at faces I'd known my whole life. My grandmother had been many things, but she'd never been cruel without reason. Whatever was in these letters, she'd wanted it exposed. She'd spent 5 years collecting evidence of something. I broke the seal on my uncle's letter, and the first line made my stomach drop. Gregory, I know what you did to your brother. My uncle went pale. Don't. But I kept reading. I know about the business loan you forged his signature on. I know about the investment fund you emptied. I know he didn't abandon his family. You drove him away by stealing everything he'd built, then convinced everyone, including his children, that he'd chosen to disappear. The room erupted. My mom screamed that it was a lie. My aunt started crying. I stood frozen, my father's face appearing in my mind for the first time in 15 years. And there were still 7 more letters to read. That's a lie, my uncle snarled, lunging toward me. Caldwell stepped between us. Mr. Patterson, sit down or I'll have security remove you. My mom grabbed my arm. Your father abandoned us. He walked away when you were 9. Did he? I looked at my uncle, whose face had gone from purple to ashen, because Grandma's letter says otherwise. I kept reading, my voice shaking. Gregory forged documents showing your father had embezzled from their joint construction company. He filed false police reports. He hired someone to threaten your father, to make him disappear. Your father didn't leave you. He was driven out, his reputation destroyed, facing prison for crimes he didn't commit. My mom collapsed into her chair. No, Gregory wouldn't. The company you claimed went bankrupt? I continued reading. It never did. Gregory dissolved it, transferred all assets to a new LLC under Vivian's maiden name, and has been operating it successfully for 15 years. The beach house you bought 5 years ago, funded entirely by money stolen from your brother. My uncle's wife stood up. We should leave. Sit down, Vivian, Caldwell said sharply. There's more. I pulled out the next letter. This one was addressed to my mom. Patricia, you knew. Mom's eyes widened. I didn't. You knew what Gregory did to your brother. You found the forged documents in his office 3 months after your husband disappeared. You chose to say nothing because Gregory promised you a cut of the business proceeds. You've been receiving monthly payments of $3,000 for 15 years. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. My own mother. I had to survive, Mom whispered. You were 9 years old. I had no job, no savings. You had a husband who loved you, I said, and you sold him out. My cousin Diana spoke up from the corner. This is insane. Why are we listening to this? I looked at her letter, pulled it out. Diana, I know you've been stealing from your parents for 6 years. The retirement fund they think is growing. You've been the trustee since you turned 21, and you've siphoned off over $200,000 for your lifestyle. The European trips, the designer clothes, all funded by your parents' nest egg. Diana went white. My aunt turned to stare at her daughter. You were supposed to manage their money, my aunt said slowly. You said it was earning interest. It was just sitting there, Diana said defensively. I was going to put it back. When? I asked. After they have nothing left for retirement? Caldwell checked his watch. 7 minutes remaining. I grabbed the next letter. This one was for my aunt. Vivian, You've been having an affair with your husband's business partner for 3 years. The baby you miscarried last year? It wasn't Gregory's. When you learned it was Richard's child, you terminated the pregnancy and told your husband it was a miscarriage. My aunt stood up, her chair clattering backward. How could she possibly? Medical records, Caldwell said quietly. Your mother-in-law was quite thorough. She hired investigators, gathered phone records, tracked financial transactions. Everything is documented. My uncle stared at his wife. Richard? My business partner, Richard? It meant nothing, my aunt said, but her voice cracked. You were sleeping with him in our beach house, my uncle said, his voice hollow. The house I bought with stolen money. We're perfect for each other. The next letter was addressed to my younger cousin, Brandon. Brandon, you've been dealing drugs from your dorm room. Not just using, selling. You've built a distribution network across 3 colleges. The car your parents think they bought you? You paid for it yourself, with drug money. My cousin jumped up. This is bullshit, I'm leaving. The door is locked, Caldwell said. And there are 2 police officers waiting in the next room. Your grandmother provided them with evidence packages for each of you. Whether charges are filed depends on what happens in this room. Brandon sat down hard. I pulled out another letter. This one was thicker than the others, addressed to my other aunt, my mom's sister Helen. Helen, you've been embezzling from the charity you run, the foundation that's supposed to help sick children. You've been using it as your personal piggy bank, skimming donations, falsifying records. Last year alone, you diverted over $150,000 meant for pediatric cancer research into offshore accounts. Aunt Helen didn't even try to deny it. She just stared at her hands, tears rolling down her cheeks. Those children needed that money, I said, my voice breaking. Some of them died waiting for treatments that might have been funded by those donations. I had debt, Aunt Helen whispered. I made bad investments. So you stole from dying children? The next letter was addressed to my uncle's son, Trevor. Trevor, you've been blackmailing your coworkers. You install spyware on their computers, gather compromising information, and extort money from them. You've ruined at least 4 people's careers and marriages. Trevor's smirk faltered. Can't prove anything. Actually, Caldwell said, your grandmother could. She had a forensic IT specialist analyze your computer. Everything is documented. The police are very interested. 2 letters remained. One was addressed to my grandmother's caretaker, Denise, who'd been hired the last year of Grandma's life. Denise, you were slowly poisoning me. Not enough to kill me quickly, but enough to make me appear increasingly senile. You wanted me declared incompetent so you could manipulate the family into putting you in charge of my medical decisions and finances. Denise, who'd been silent in the corner this whole time, stood up slowly. That woman was dying anyway. Cancer. She didn't have cancer, Caldwell said. She had arsenic poisoning, which resolved completely once you were fired 6 months before her death. The police have evidence. You're being arrested as soon as this reading concludes. My hands were shaking as I reached for the final letter. It was addressed to me. The room went silent. I broke the seal and began reading. My darling girl, if you're reading this, then you've learned some hard truths about our family. I know this must hurt. I know you're wondering why I put you through this. The truth is, I was dying, really dying this time. And I couldn't leave this world knowing the people I'd built this fortune for had become so corrupted by greed. I couldn't let them profit from their cruelty and their crimes. You were the only one who came to see me because you loved me, not because you wanted something. You held my hand during chemo. You brought me silly movies to watch. You made me laugh when I was too tired to smile. The money is yours because you earned it with kindness. But more than that, you need to know the truth about your father. My breath caught. Your father is alive. He's been living in Colorado under an assumed name for 15 years. I found him 2 years ago. We've been in regular contact. He wanted to reach out to you, but he was afraid. Afraid your uncle would find him. Afraid it would put you in danger. Afraid you'd hate him for leaving. But he never stopped loving you. He has pictures of you all over his apartment, gathered from social media, from old friends. He follows your life from a distance. He knows you're a teacher. He knows you volunteer at the animal shelter. He's so proud of you. In this envelope, you'll find his phone number and address. The choice to contact him is yours. No pressure, no obligation, but you deserve to know he didn't abandon you. He was protecting you from a dangerous man, your uncle, who threatened to frame you for crimes if your father ever tried to come back. As for the rest of them, well, the evidence I've gathered will be enough to prosecute most of them if you choose, or you can let them live with the knowledge that you know what they've done. Either way, the money is yours. Use it to live a good life. Help people who deserve it. Be better than they were. I love you, sweetheart. I'm sorry I'm leaving, but I'm not sorry for how I'm leaving. Some truths need to see daylight. All my love, Grandma. The letter fell from my hands. My father was alive. 15 years of thinking he'd abandoned me, and he'd been hiding, protecting me. I looked at my uncle, and for the first time in my life, I felt real hatred. You destroyed my family, I said quietly. I built this family. He shot back. Your father was weak. He would have run the company into the ground. So you framed him for embezzlement, stole his business, and threatened his daughter? My uncle's face twisted. I did what I had to do. Mr. Caldwell, I said, not taking my eyes off my uncle. You said there are police waiting? Yes? I want to press charges. Against all of them. Every single crime my grandmother documented. I want it prosecuted. You can't do this, Mom said, standing up. I'm your mother. You knew what he did to my father and you said nothing. For money. I felt cold, empty. You chose cash over my childhood. We can fight this, my uncle said, but his voice had lost its bluster. Good lawyers? With what money? I asked. I'm inheriting everything, remember? And I'm going to use a good chunk of it to make sure every single one of you faces consequences. Caldwell pulled out his phone. I'll call the officers in. Wait, Aunt Helen said. Please. If this becomes public, the charity you stole from? I felt something hard settling in my chest. Good. It should be investigated. Maybe the next person who runs it will actually help sick kids. I'll pay it back, she said desperately. Every penny. You can tell that to the judge. The door opened. 2 police officers entered, followed by a woman in a dark suit who introduced herself as Detective Morrison. We've been waiting for this will reading, she said. Mrs. Patterson gave us sealed evidence packages 6 months ago, to be opened after her death. We've had warrants prepared, pending confirmation of the information. She looked at me. Your grandmother was very thorough. She wanted to make sure we had everything we needed. Detective, my uncle said, trying to sound reasonable. I'm sure we can work something out. Gregory Patterson, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit witness intimidation. Detective Morrison nodded to her partner, who moved forward with handcuffs. My uncle tried to run. He actually tried to run. He made it 3 steps before the second officer tackled him. As they cuffed him, the detective continued. Vivian Patterson, Diana Patterson, Trevor Patterson, Helen Crawford, Brandon Crawford, you're all being taken in for questioning. We have warrants for financial records, computer forensics, the works. I want a lawyer, Diana said. Smart, Detective Morrison replied. You're all going to need them. Denise, the caretaker, was already being led away in handcuffs. Attempted murder carried a longer sentence than fraud. My mom was crying. Please, she said to me. I'm sorry, I was scared. You were greedy, I said flatly. There's a difference. As the police led my family members out one by one, Caldwell handed me a folder. Your grandmother's final instructions, contact information for your father, and a list of lawyers she recommended, people who can help you manage the estate and navigate the legal complications ahead. Thank you, I said, my voice distant. Your grandmother was one of the most remarkable people I've ever met, Caldwell said quietly. In 40 years of practicing law, I've never seen anyone plan something this meticulously. She spent the last 2 years of her life gathering evidence, building an airtight case. All of this, he gestured to the chaos around us, she orchestrated to protect you. After everyone left, I sat alone in the office, staring at the paper with my father's phone number. I'd spent 15 years believing he'd abandoned me, 15 years of anger and hurt and confusion, and all along he'd been hiding to keep me safe. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone. The number rang 3 times before a man answered. Hello? The voice hit me like a wave. Older, rougher, but unmistakably him. Dad? Silence. Then a choked sound, like a sob trapped in his throat. Sweetheart, is that really you? Grandma's will reading was today, I said, tears streaming down my face. She told me everything. I wanted to come back so many times, he said, his voice breaking. But Gregory threatened. He said he'd frame you, said he'd make sure you went to prison if I ever tried. I know. She explained everything. Are you okay? Did the reading, was it awful? I laughed, a harsh sound. It was the most beautiful act of revenge I've ever witnessed. I told him everything. The letters, the arrests, the inheritance. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. She always said she'd take care of you. I just didn't expect this. Can I see you? I asked. I have so many questions. I'm booking a flight right now, he said immediately. I'll be there tomorrow, if you want me there. I've wanted you here for 15 years. The next day I stood at the airport arrivals gate, my heart hammering. I'd looked at old photos all night trying to remember his face. Would I even recognize him? Then I saw him. Older, grayer, more lines around his eyes. But his smile was exactly the same. We stood there for a moment, just staring at each other. Then he opened his arms and I walked into a hug I'd been missing since I was 9 years old. I'm so sorry, he whispered into my hair. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. You were protecting me, I said. Grandma explained. We talked for hours that day. He told me about the threats, the forged documents, the fear that kept him away. He'd wanted to contact me so many times, but Gregory had made it clear. Any attempt to reach out would result in me being implicated in fake crimes. He had everything planned, my father said. False evidence, corrupt witnesses. He would have destroyed your life just to keep me silent. He destroyed it anyway, I said, just in a different way. Over the next few weeks, the legal proceedings moved forward. My uncle was charged with fraud, embezzlement, and witness tampering. The evidence was overwhelming. Grandma had documented everything. Diana faced charges for elder financial abuse and theft. She'd stolen over $200,000 from her own parents' retirement fund. Trevor was arrested for blackmail and computer crimes. His victims started coming forward once news of his arrest broke. Aunt Helen resigned from the charity before she could be fired. She was charged with embezzlement and fraud. The foundation she'd stolen from launched a full audit. Brandon's drug operation was shut down. He faced distribution charges across 3 counties. My mom avoided criminal charges. Barely. Her lawyer argued she'd been under duress, frightened of her brother, but her involvement was documented. The prosecution offered a deal. She'd testify against my uncle and pay restitution. She called me once after that. I know you won't forgive me, she said, but I need you to understand. I was scared. I thought if I went along with Gregory, at least you'd be safe. You could have told me the truth, I said. Any point in the last 15 years. Would you have believed me? I guess we'll never know. I haven't spoken to her since. The trial was brutal. My uncle tried every defense his lawyers could manufacture. He claimed the documents were forged, that Grandma had been senile, that I'd manipulated a dying woman, but the evidence was ironclad. Bank records, emails, witness testimony. Grandma had even secretly recorded conversations with my uncle where he'd bragged about driving his brother out of business. The jury took 4 hours to convict him on all counts. He got 12 years. As they led him away, he looked at me one last time. You destroyed this family, he said. No, I replied. You did. I just made sure everyone knew it. The estate took months to settle. Lawyers, accountants, financial advisors, all of them helping me understand the fortune Grandma had built. $3.7 million in liquid assets, plus properties, investments, the works. I sold the beach house, the one my uncle bought with stolen money, and donated the proceeds to a legal aid fund for fraud victims. I sold most of the other properties too, keeping only Grandma's original house. With the rest of the money, I set up 3 trusts. The first was for my father, giving him financial security for the first time in 15 years. He cried when I told him, "You don't have to do this," he said. "You lost everything because of him," I said. "This is just making it right." The second trust was for Aunt Helen's charity, the real charity, the one actually helping sick kids. I brought in new management, new oversight, and donated $500,000 to replace what she'd stolen. The third trust was for me, but with a twist. I quit my teaching job and went back to school for social work. I wanted to help families destroyed by greed and betrayal, wanted to stop other kids from losing their parents to schemes and lies. My father and I have dinner every Sunday now. He moved back to town, started reconnecting with old friends. He's even started dating again, a nice woman who owns a bookstore downtown. Sometimes we talk about those lost 15 years, about everything we missed. His voice at my high school graduation, his advice when I got my first real job, his shoulder to cry on during my worst breakup. "I can't get those years back," he said once, "but I can be here for all the years ahead." "That's enough," I told him, and I meant it. The family scattered after the trial. Diana moved across the country. Trevor's still in prison. Brandon got probation and court-ordered rehab. Aunt Helen lost her house paying restitution and legal fees. My mom sends cards sometimes. Birthday, Christmas. I don't open them. Maybe someday I'll be ready to hear her apologies. Maybe someday I'll understand the fear that made her choose money over truth. But that day isn't today. Last week, I visited Grandma's grave for the first time since the will reading. I brought flowers and sat on the grass, telling her about my new career, about reconnecting with my father, about the trust fund helping families like ours. "You could have just given me the money," I said to her headstone. "You didn't have to burn down the whole family to do it." But even as I said it, I knew that wasn't true. Grandma didn't burn down the family. She revealed that it was already ashes. She just made sure everyone could see the truth. As I stood to leave, I noticed something carved at the base of her headstone. Fresh letters, recently added, "The truth will set you free, but first it will make you furious." I smiled despite myself. Even from beyond the grave, Grandma got the last word. My father met me at my car. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, looking back at the cemetery. "I think I finally am." We drove to dinner together, and for the first time in 15 years, I felt like I had a family again. Not the family I was born into. That one was built on lies and greed and cruelty. But a family I'd chosen, built on truth and forgiveness and love. Grandma's ruthless will reading didn't just give me an inheritance. It gave me back my father. It gave me the truth. And it gave me the chance to become someone better than the people who raised me. Sometimes I think about my uncle in prison, about my mom alone with her guilt, about all of them living with the consequences of their choices. And I don't feel satisfaction exactly. More like resolution. They chose greed. Grandma chose truth. And I choose to be the person she believed I could be. Someone who uses wealth to help rather than harm, who values honesty over comfort, who understands that real family isn't defined by blood, but by loyalty and love. 3 years later, I'm running a nonprofit that helps fraud victims rebuild their lives. We provide legal assistance, financial counseling, and emotional support. We've helped over 200 families so far. Last month, a woman came to my office. Her brother had embezzled her inheritance, forged documents, destroyed her credit. The story was painfully familiar. "I don't know how to fight him," she said, crying in my office. "He has lawyers, money, connections. I have nothing." I handed her a tissue and smiled. "That's not true," I said. "You have the truth. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that the truth is the most powerful weapon there is." She looked at me with desperate hope. "You really think I can win?" I thought about Grandma, meticulously gathering evidence for years. I thought about those letters, exposing corruption and lies. I thought about how one old woman's refusal to let cruelty go unpunished had changed everything. "I know you can," I said, "and I'm going to help you do it. Because that's what Grandma's ruthless will reading really gave me. Not just money or justice or revenge. It gave me a purpose. It showed me that one person with enough courage and determination can expose lies, right wrongs, and change lives. She would have been proud of that. Hell, she probably planned it that way all along.